Ever since I could remember, art had been my escape. While my sister Emma was busy racking up gold medals, trophies, and certificates in academics and sports, I lived in a world of colors, brushstrokes, and imagination. I wasn't the star child, not by the standards my parents cared about. They bragged about Emma at family dinners, displayed her awards proudly on every wall and shelf in the house, and posted every small achievement of hers on social media with captions that could make strangers think she was some kind of prodigy. Meanwhile, my sketches, my paintings, my sculptures were considered cute hobbies that I should grow out of. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. At first, I accepted it. I told myself it didn't matter if they didn't get it, that creating was enough, that one day maybe they would see the beauty and depth in what I did. So I kept working. I stayed up late, blending colors, getting paint all over my clothes, my hands, my heart. My room slowly turned into a small art studio. Canvases leaned against walls, unfinished sketches scattered across my desk, a mess of dreams that I held close to my chest. Then, one weekend, while I was away on a school trip, they decided the house needed reorganizing. When I got back, the first thing I noticed was how clean everything looked. Unnervingly clean. I rushed to my room. The canvases I had spent years pouring my soul into were gone. The charcoal sketches I had done of my late grandmother, the surreal painting of my nightmares, the hopeful landscapes, all of them nowhere to be seen. My heart thundered in my chest as I stumbled into the living room where I found the answer. There, lining the walls, were even more awards and certificates of Emma's latest victories. They had made room for them by clearing out mine. I remember standing there, unable to breathe, while my mother casually sipped her tea and said, "We needed to showcase what's really important. You still have your photos on your phone, don't you?" My dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Emma walked past me with a slight, almost smug smile on her face, as if this was justice for all the attention she thought I dared to steal. That night, I cried harder than I ever had, not because they valued her more. I had already known that deep down, but because it was like they had erased pieces of me, and they didn't even flinch. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear down every single plaque and certificate and make them see what they had done. But instead, I wiped my tears and an idea began to take root. If my art wasn't good enough for them, maybe it was meant for someone else, for people who would see it, feel it, understand it. Maybe the world deserved to see it, even if my own family didn't. I started researching late into the night. I found open art exhibitions, online galleries, competitions that didn't require fancy connections, just raw passion. I took photos of the pieces they had thrown away. Luckily, I had documented most of them and created a digital portfolio. Then I began painting again, this time with more fire than ever. Every brushstroke was a rebellion. Every color was a scream they refused to hear. I didn't tell them what I was doing. Let them think I had given up. Let them stay blind. Days turned into weeks, and with every submission I made, I poured a little more of my heart into the universe, hoping someone would catch it. And then, something extraordinary happened. The first few days after leaving home were strange. I kept expecting someone to call, to apologize, to ask me to come back. But the phone stayed silent, and the silence slowly taught me something. I didn't need their validation to exist. I didn't need their approval to create. My art wasn't a hobby to be humored. It was my voice in a world that had always tried to mute it. I rented a tiny studio above a cafe downtown, scraping by on part-time jobs and whatever freelance gigs I could find. It was cold in the winter, the heating barely worked, and the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbors' late-night guitar sessions. But the place had big windows, and the light poured in during the afternoon, flooding my little studio with gold. That light, that was the first thing that felt like hope. I painted like I was trying to set myself free. I painted every emotion I had bottled up for years, the loneliness, the betrayal, the invisible bruises no one ever saw. Every brushstroke was a rebellion against being overlooked, an act of reclaiming the space I was always denied. One evening, exhausted after a long shift at the cafe, I stumbled across a poster taped to the community bulletin board. It was for an upcoming citywide art competition. The theme was What Was Lost. My heart raced. Was it crazy to even think about it? The entry deadline was only 3 days away, and I had nothing ready. Still, something deep inside whispered, "This is your moment." I threw myself into it, forgetting to eat, forgetting to sleep. I poured every ounce of memory into that canvas, the feeling of being pushed aside, the nights spent staring at blank walls, the way my hands had shaken when I found my paintings dumped in the trash, buried under crumpled ribbons and broken trophies. I called it Buried Dreams. It was raw, painful, and unlike anything I had ever created before. The night of the competition arrived, and I almost didn't go. Fear gnawed at me. What if they laughed? What if I was ignored again? But something even stronger pushed me forward. The small voice inside that still believed in the little girl who used to draw on scraps of paper and dream bigger than her surroundings allowed. When I walked into the gallery, I froze. Hundreds of people filled the room, their faces lit by the glow of countless paintings and sculptures. I spotted my piece on the far wall, a spotlight illuminating it like a secret finally brought into the open. I wandered through the crowd, catching snippets of conversations. To my shock, people were talking about my painting. I heard phrases like, "It feels so personal," and "You can feel the heartbreak behind it." Some stood silently before it for minutes, just staring. And then the unthinkable happened. When the awards were announced, my name was called for the grand prize. I stood there, stunned, barely able to move. The applause felt distant, like it was coming from another world. I stumbled onto the small stage, blinking back tears as the event organizer handed me the prize. A modest check, a solo exhibition at a bigger gallery downtown, and a small glass trophy that caught the light and fractured it into rainbows. I had done it. Without them, without their approval, without their space. Just as I stepped off the stage, I caught sight of them, my parents, my sister, standing at the back of the room, their faces unreadable. My mother clutched her purse tightly, her knuckles white. My father's mouth was pressed into a thin, angry line. And my sister, oh, she looked like she had swallowed something sour. Later, they approached me, careful smiles pasted onto their faces. "We didn't realize how serious you were about this art thing," my father said stiffly, as if acknowledging my success was physically painful. My mother glanced around nervously, like she was worried someone important would overhear. "We're proud of you," she added, the words hollow. My sister shrugged. "I guess you found your thing." I looked at them, the people who had once thrown my dreams into the trash without a second thought. And for the first time, I felt nothing but peace. They didn't define me anymore. Their approval didn't make or break me. "You know," I said calmly, "it's funny. I always thought I had to fight for a place on your shelf, but it turns out I just needed a bigger wall." They didn't know what to say. I turned away, leaving them standing there, awkward and silent among a sea of strangers celebrating my triumph. Months passed. My solo exhibition opened, drawing even more attention. One of my pieces was purchased by a well-known art collector. Another ended up featured in a national magazine. I moved out of the loft into a brighter, bigger studio with real windows and real heat. One day, I received a letter, an invitation to showcase my work in a traveling exhibit that would tour internationally: Paris, Tokyo, New York, the places I'd once only seen in worn library books. I stood there holding the letter, and a memory floated back. My sister's awards, proudly displayed, polished every week, shown off to every guest. How small that world had been. How much bigger mine had become. I packed my brushes, my paints, and my dreams, and this time I carried them into a future where I decided where they belonged. Not in a dusty attic, not buried under someone else's trophies, but out in the light, where anyone and everyone could see what it really looked like when someone refused to be erased. And the best part? They had front row seats to all of it, not because I needed them there, but because the world had finally seen me,